Starting in on assignment 2, we're going to be going with project P2-9. The symmetry symbols have kind of fallen by the wayside in most drawings, but they call it out symbol for symmetry, which means that left to right, top to bottom, and we can we can use that symmetry in our mirror. So if we draw one quadrant, then we can mirror it over and mirror it over again. And then we'll introduce the polygons, even though this is technically a rectangle. We'll take a look at how the polygons come into play and some different things that we can do with those. So let's open up, just double checking. We are in metric, so a new part metric. Anytime we're doing the revolves or mirroring where we have the symmetry, we're going to want to include a center line. So sketch, coming up to the line, doing the down arrow next to, we'll go center line, vertical, infinite length. So one of the reasons that I like the infinite length is you don't ever run out of center line. If you drew something a little bit smaller or tried to make it a little more compact, there's a possibility that your object line would end up on top of it and then not be as selectable or identifiable. All right, so we're looking for that jump, that little snap to the origin. And then, okay, we'll switch over to horizontal since we're going in both directions. And then I'll just go ahead and kick both of those out. All right, so we can go up, over, up, and I'm doing the click drag. And we get one portion of that into our process. And these are dimensioned for the quadrant, so 50. And just like we did in the revolve, the optional revolve, if I go to the center line and drag to the other side and I wanted the whole length, even though I haven't generated that geometry yet, I could put a full dimension as opposed to a half dimension. So that one's going to be 20. And we have a depth of 20. And then again, it still wants to be, right now it's radial. So we're going to hit escape on the keyboard, place our dimension, and type in the 20. All right, so 50, and then also 50 for the body. So we'll pick up the recording as a we've done one side of the quadrant, and make sure that I've checked my dimensions. We also have the whole location in there to deal with. I'm not real worried about the okay, so there's no fillet there. There's fillet on the outside. We can either put the fillets in as a sketch fillet or as a feature fillet, and there are advantages to having the feature fillet in the selection process. Because we're mirroring this, I don't know that it's going to be really that big of a deal. So radius of 10. If we include them now, then I won't have to go pick everything. Okay, and it's warning me that a segment being filled has a midpoint or equal, which means that that dimension, I'm doing really good at selecting midpoints whether I want them or not. And so it's just letting me know that something to that midpoint is not not as good. So just because the dimension picked up that location, it's not going to really affect anything. All right, so going over to the circle command, we do the click click. I'm going to right click, go right into the smart dimension, pick the perimeter, and we have 12, and its location, keep in mind too, the center line construction lines, anytime you drag past is going to go to the full dimension or the diametral to radial. So just watch for those. Make sure that you're intending for that to happen when it happens. Okay, so 35. And then as far as placing the dimensions, sometimes I get really particular about I want everything lined up just so, and then other times like this, they might be a little bit on top of each other, so not really that big of a deal. All right, so at this point we're ready to mirror. I do not want the center lines to be included in the mirror selection, so I'm going to left click, drag from left to right. Again, the up and down is not the issue, and it's going to pick everything in the window. So it excluded my center line, horizontal and vertical, and then we're going to look in the command manager for mirror entities. And so we've got our geometry, and in this case, we're going to mirror about. Even, it has a checkbox for copy. Even if I was just trying to flip this to the other side of the construction line, I would probably go ahead and copy it and then turn this into construction geometry, because all of the dimensions are here, all of the relations are here, and these just pick up symmetry. So unless I wanted to do it all over again, I think it's a good idea to leave leave the copy on with that. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the relations. So notice this is picking up symmetry, and it's symmetry on the endpoints, which does the same thing. So as I mentioned, there's no horizontal, there's no vertical. It just picks up symmetry between that point across that line. All right, so one more time, we'll go left to right, pick up all of the geometry, mirror the entities, and you just scroll down a bit, make sure that those boxes are highlighted in blue, that when it's in the entities to mirror, you're basically picking the construction line as well, and we don't really mirror construction lines. They are the tool that we mirror about. So we select that and go ahead and hit OK, and that gives us our geometry. All right, so my first pick on the rectangle would be the center rectangle. And we would go to the origin, look for that little snap, look for a little yellow box for coincidence, and then draw the rectangle. We also have in the polygon tool is 3 or more sides. So if I were to do a polygon, it's not unheard of, but it does sort of the same thing. But it's also going to generate an inscribed or a circumscribed circle. So just the main difference is that if I see this circumscribed circle, it's going to stay a square because let's escape out of that. It's going to stay a square because it has tangency to that base circle or to the inscribed circle. Right, so one of those, adding our relations now, where the rectangle, the center rectangle would have given us horizontals, verticals. Now we have to apply at least one of those, and then we could apply the dimension to the circle, would have kind of the same effect. And they did 10, so I'm just going to do the math on that and call it 20. All right, so that gives us our geometry. Also notice that we have the nested for the shaded sketch contours. If I turn those off, then we just have the selection. And when we have nested geometry, it's going to be a little darker. And if I was to say put another circle inside of that one, it gets a little darker still on the shading. So helps you discern kind of the levels. Also, if you accidentally overlap, you're going to see different colors. So a little bit darker shading, lighter at the same level, lighter at the same level as this. Helps you figure out what's going on with those. Okay, so the features then will extrude boss base, and we're going 16 millimeters. I still like going the other way. It really doesn't matter if you flip the toggle and bring it forward or tell it to go back. All right, so that gives us our geometry. Optionally, I do want to show the mirror feature. So I'm going to go back and manipulate this a little bit. Let's see, which way do I want to go? Shouldn't really matter. So I'm going to go also with the mirrors and the fillets. It looked like it picked up these mirror points. So these little points just appear whenever you have the mirror. It's part of the symmetry. So I'm going to set up a condition where I can do one quadrant, and I right click on the sketch, and it's already telling me that there's a problem because I changed it. And no, I don't really need to see the problem, but if I show it, it has more than one open contour, which is telling me that now I'm in a contour and region situation. All right, so I expected it to do that, and after you do this a while and see what's going on, it's not really really that big of a deal. It did not complete my extrude though, so we need to go back in. And now what it's asking for is going to be this selected contour. So since I want to illustrate the mirror feature, I'm just going to pick the one quadrant. All right, so under the linear pattern, just like we did the circular pattern for the cut, we're also going to find mirror, curve-driven, sketch-driven, table-driven, fill, and variable. All of those do really cool things, but they're fairly specific to to that function. So we want to read, make sure that our box in blue mirror face plane. We'll select. I don't remember doing this secondary, but let's go ahead and do a secondary. Oh, it's going to give it to us in one shot. Now, the feature, yeah, it's a single feature, so the boss extrude should work. So we'll go ahead and accept. Things like there are times where it needs to be the body to mirror as opposed to the features. So just be aware that if it fails, the bodies to mirror are one option, and then geometry pattern, if it's complex enough, you're basically telling it with a geometry pattern, I'm okay with the geometry, go ahead and mirror it, and don't have to do a complete solve for uh, the settings. So the mirror, like I said, I don't remember, haven't done mirror in a while, so I don't remember it doing in the two directions, but that's kind of cool and works pretty well. I do also want to illustrate the fillet features since we did the fillets in the sketch. In this case, if I'd drawn all this and filleted all of the corners and had to select those, I wouldn't have been as thrilled about that. So when we go into the fillet command, we can pick item to fillet, and let's make that a little bit smaller, maybe 2 millimeters. And when I pick the next one, it's going to give us this context menu that allows for making multiple selections. So if there were really a lot of fillets, this would be the way to go. So I can pick all of those interior, exterior corners, all the way up to everything. If it's got an edge on it, it will have a fillet. All right, and then all 62 edges, but pretty much I'm just going to stay with those. All right, so that's one quick way to add. The other is to right click and you'll see fillet and chamfer on the right mouse button. And I, again, just have that habit of hitting the right mouse button, but you can also left mouse button, it'll put it in. It's only going to show partial because I told it partial. And since it highlights and shows me the dashed lines around the outside, it's going to do the whole thing. So the process and where you need those items is just going to kind of depend on the part. I will say that from a manufacturing standpoint, a radius over the top is more expensive than to run the chamfer. So if I was going to put an edge break on this, maybe this has to fit. The chamfer is going to be easier and less tolerance because the roundover tool has some basic blending, blending issues that we would maybe the one, let's see if it'll go all the way around. Okay, so this tool is going to be a 90-degree tool that I can adjust the depth a little bit easier. And then the roundover tool has to set for the pilot and also the depth, and you very easily get a little score mark this way or a score mark this way if there's any variation in the material. So radiuses are pretty, they're soft, soften the part and make it a little more handleable, but it also adds cost to the part. So just something to keep in mind and consideration. All right, so we need to save this. And we're out of assignment 1, so we can go up one level in our assignments folder and do assign 2. I'm just going to stay with my naming. And this is P2-9. And my initials on the end of it. All right, we'll call that good.